Yeah, and also thank you to all of you for being here today. Almost made it halfway. And thank you to Google for hosting this inspiring day of media literacy, bringing together so many people from all over the world working in this field. Great. If you each grab a colorful microphone. Correct. Yes, perfect. Great. I'll do then a short introduction to our brilliant panel. I'll start with Marianka, who is Deputy Director at One World in Schools, which is an educational program in the Czech organization People in Need. They deliver media literacy to schools all across the Czech Republic, but they also organize the annual Media Literacy Weeks, reaching over 16,000 pupils to date. This year, they've also started an interesting program focusing on teachers and students in 5 of the most disadvantaged regions in the Czech Republic. So we're exciting to hear more from you later. I'll turn to Santi Indra Astuti, who is Head of Research at Mafindo, an Indonesian organization running campaigns like Stop Hoax Indonesia, which aims to reach almost 1,300 housewives this year. They also run fact-checking competitions for students and journalists to counteract disinformation in the lead-up to the 2020 local elections in Indonesia. ILJUN Park is co-chairman for the Center for Digital Literacy. Based in Korea, they reached 15,000 children, 1,000 teachers across 200 schools. They've also trained parents, equipping them with tips to help their kids use digital media in the best possible way. And last but not least, we have Destin, Sandlin, who's already had a shout out. He is the founder of the science-focused YouTube channel Smarter Every Day, which has over 7.2 million subscribers. He's also one of the first MediaWise ambassadors, as mentioned, and he's helping to spread the word about the digital literacy initiative that aims to teach teenagers how to sort facts from fiction online, which we briefly heard about. I myself is Kirstine Føge Jensen, and I am the interim executive director of the Guardian Foundation. I have the pleasure of chairing this panel today, exploring how we speak to the hardest to reach audiences. In the foundation, we have 3 strategic aims. We support independent media under threat. We aim to increase diversity in the media. And then we empower children and young people to critically engage with the news. Media literacy and hard to reach audiences are of special interest to me because we run 2 big news literacy programs at the foundation. We have the Education Center, which is now its 18th year and has now introduced almost 140,000 children to the world of news. However, every year in the Education Center, we have more than 200 schools on the waiting list for free workshops. And because the Education Center is just across the road in the Guardian building, we will inevitably cater more for the London audiences or the southeast of the UK. So, to cover this need of the waiting list, but also to make sure that we reach those communities who doesn't normally get these opportunities, we set up Newswise, as you've heard about, and we did that in collaboration with National Literacy Trust, PSHE Association, and was funded by google.org. Newswise, just reiterating, it's equipping the 9 to 11-year-olds with the skills and the knowledge to navigate our very confusing worlds, increasingly filled with and misinformation. And when I say across the UK, I really mean it. We traveled more than 10,000 miles, and we actually mapped the schools that we went to the proportion of primary schools in the UK. We then saw real digital and economic poverty, and especially teachers working in really, really challenging circumstances. One school in Wales even told us that they had never, ever had a visitor from London. Not even in media literacy, but just in general, period, stop. But we do more to reach also hard-to-reach audiences. It's not only geography. We focus our work on hard-to-reach schools using a number of indicators, including free school meals and literacy levels. We know from our work with National Literacy Trust that the lack of literacy skills really hold you back at every stage of your life, making it really hard to enable social mobility and create equality in society. So we work with the National Literacy Trust hub areas to tackle this problem as well. But enough about this, because these are some of the ways that we try to tackle hardest to reach or reach the hardest to reach audiences here in the UK. But the big privilege of having our panel here today is that we can expand our knowledge about global issues and hear about how they're being tackled quite brilliantly by our panelists locally. I'd like to invite the panelists to give a 2-minute introduction to themselves and their organizations before we move on to a discussion and then questions from the floor. I'll ask you, Santi, to start with a 2-minute introduction.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kirstine. Hello, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I feel so honored here to represent my organization. Well, our main program this year, one of our main program is powered by Google News Initiative, and it is called Stop Hoax Indonesia. One of it aimed to enabling housewife as social agent against disinformation in the community. The question is why housewife? Situating the problems, in the past 2 years, there are 29 cases of hoax that involve housewife. They are brought to the police because spreading hoax and also spark violence and also hate speech and slanders among our community. So talking about their social economic background, they are comprises from the young mothers and also the old one, 20s to 60, and also they are coming from poor family but also rich family as well. There are some of them receiving only middle high education, but also there are others who who receive higher education, graduating from the university, and some of them pure housewife, the others civil officer, teacher, lecturer, and also doctor or physician. So we found this very devastating because, it seemed that hoax, misinformation, or disinformation problems has viciously attacked the very core of our society, mothers and also the family. So what we do actually right now is trying to incorporate some strategies and educational materials that hopefully will attract them to do even as very simple fact-checking and in the form of drama, web series, and also a cooking talk show for mothers. And also what we do is trying to compose a strategy that working on 3 levels, in the personal levels, in the societal levels, or also in the community levels. Well, I think we can discuss much about this, but what I want to emphasize here is that fighting hoax is not enough by formal institution. We should touch the ground of the base of this problem. It means also involving the family. So I think with this in mind, incorporating the family, the mother, and also their children in this struggle against misinformation and disinformation in the society, I think I want to proudly share our web trailer. It is a drama pack action series because mothers love drama and became a superhero. Yes, it is about a family, superhero family, where the mother became the core of the war against the disinformation. So can we move to?
I think you click on.
Okay.
Kayaknya kita bakal libur makan ikan dulu deh. Ternyata lele itu bisa menyebabkan kanker.
Seriusan, Ma? Masa lele bikin kanker sih?
Beneran, Kak. Tidak hanya dunia digital, dunia nyata juga harus.
Ini di pabrik makanan kalian mau mati kemarin, papa kira udah selesai.
Ini pasti ulah si hoax itu, Mah.
Selama mereka masih butuh uang, disuruh ngapain aja juga pasti mau. Ini, Vina, kenapa balik kalian lihat? Masa Dr. Broto dituduh menyuntikkan vaksin yang bisa menyebabkan menopause dini pada anak-anak SD.
Jadi ngerasa ada yang aneh deh. Kenapa cuma dokter Broto terus yang ditonjolkan?
Iya aneh, padahal juga baru aja kemarin videonya mama sama dokter Broto viral.
Kalau gitu gimana kalau kita bantu cari kebenarannya?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Santi. That was great. I'll now turn to Marianka as our next person to present for a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. To talk about One World in Schools, I will go a little back in history just to put us in context. We are actually the organization People in Need. We were created after the revolution after '89 by one of the leaders of the student movement, so that you understand a bit where we come from. We are an organization that does humanitarian and development aid work in 21 countries of the world. That's one big part of what we do, but then we also work in the Czech Republic. We have social workers. We have a festival called One World, which is a festival of documentary films on human rights. And One World in Schools comes from this festival, obviously, 18 years ago. We actually work with documentary film. We create teaching materials based on these films so that we can help teachers bring to schools some topics that can be difficult to talk about, like human rights, homosexuality, racism, various topics, and media literacy, obviously, which has become now one of the biggest topics that we cover. We are actually probably one of the biggest media literacy programs in the Czech Republic now. And what do we do? First of all, we do polls and surveys to know what we should do. A couple of years ago, we did a survey with teachers to know how is media literacy taught in schools. And it varies according to the type of schools, but one thing they all had in common was that they said they have no time, they have no resources, they don't feel confident to teach this topic, and they don't have the support from above. The government doesn't really do anything about this. So what do? We try to help them. We create resources, manuals, videos. Every month we send them a bulletin so that they know what's going on in the media field. We do teacher trainings like conferences, day seminars, year-long classes. And we have a platform where we gather all the organizations that work with media literacy so that we can share and see who's doing what and so that we know what's going on. We do the media literacy weeks, as Kirstine said. And one of the things that we do during these weeks is that we collaborate with journalists and we send these journalists to various schools so that the students get to talk with someone who does the news, who writes the news. And when these journalists come to little towns at the border of the country, they are very glad. They don't even, until that person comes there, they don't even believe that someone will actually go there, take 4 hours to cross the country and go all the way there. And we do some learning by doing programs directly with children so that it doesn't come only from the teacher's side, but also from their side. And to go back to what I said at the beginning, we work in 21 countries of the world with development aid work, which means that some of the programs that we develop in the Czech Republic and use in the Czech Republic, we try also to bring abroad. So media literacy is one of these things that we do.
Great, thank you. ILJUN, do you want to be next in presenting? Thank you.
Yeah. CDL is a non-profit organization established in 2016. We have educated 15,000 students, 5,000 teachers, and 5,000 parents. We cooperate with government, and mostly our program in regular class of public school. In Korea, we have very special program in middle school. We call free semester program. For the first 1 year, every student can choose free subject. It's a kind of a program and a period for searching their dream. No exam, no science, no mathematics. It's just free. It's quite amazing program. 50% of our activity running on that free semester program, and other 30% of our program runs in elementary school, and 20% for disadvantaged youth outside school. Yeah, let's take a look at the 1-minute video. This will help you to understand more about our organization and program.
안녕. 나는 베트남 사파에 사는 소야. 반가워.
It's the order result by students, especially the last one, music with graphic. It's composed by students who can hear any sound. This is amazing. Yeah. I like to add one more thing. In the previous session, Professor Masato mentioned about the difference between Western and Asian world. I fully agree with you. And that's why we developed our own contents and program for our society. The biggest difference of our program is that we emphasizing on community relationship and social relationship than democracy. Because democracy is it's a political concept. If it brings more conflict in class and to our stakeholders. So we emphasize more on community relationship. It's more Oriental and Korean way. So it's working, I think. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Destin.
Yes, my name is Destin Sandlin. I have a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day. That's what I do on the internet. But before that, I was what's called a missile flight test engineer for the U.S. Army for 15 years. So I tested weapons, and I never told the internet that. And then I worked with the Poynter Institute. They approached me about doing a digital media literacy campaign. I'm all about it, right? Because it's disinformation is a really big deal. So there's two components. There's just the misinformation, and there's the active, like sowing hate and discontent, disinformation. And the last thing I did for my job is I went and spoke to a 4-star general. And it kind of changed the whole way that I viewed this whole thing. And I really wanted to get involved. The Poynter Institute gave me an opportunity, so I did it. I made a video, and I've been actively working with them to try to help people discern fact from fiction online.
Great, thank you very much. We'll get more into that.
More into that, yeah.
As well. Thank you. Marianka, I would actually like to start with a question for you, because the project that was mentioned about you've just started this year, that is in the 5 most disadvantaged regions, but it's also for vocational schools. Can you tell us a bit more about what is the criteria of choosing both that region, but also the vocational schools? Because I don't know that's a concept globally, so it'd be interesting to hear more about that.
Of course. So vocational schools are schools where you go to learn a craft. Plumbing, repairing a car, sewing. Very often it's not finished with a final exam, so you don't go to university, you just go there and then have a job, which can be a very good job, but it's just a specific type of school where you don't really have lots of humanities subjects, which are subjects through which we get to bring media literacy to schools normally, like civic education. Teachers who teach civic education will use our materials, but in these schools, they're not really there, so they can't use our materials. Why these regions? Actually, we looked at various socio-economical elements to choose them. So it's like from poor poorer regions. Why 5 regions? Why vocational schools? Like the regions is because right now this project is in the testing phase. So we just chose a few schools to work with, a few regions to work with, and we tested. We're like creating now a strategy how to reach these vocational schools, because like general schools where you have the humanities subjects, we don't have a problem with them. We have almost 100% of these schools are registered with us. They use our material regularly. They come to our seminars, to our conferences. It's all good. But with the vocational schools also, although almost 80% of them are registered with us, they often use like a material once. They create, like we did earlier this year, we did a series of 5 videos with a YouTuber. So of course that's very popular. So they screen it once and then they don't use it again. So we need to go back there to make them use it, because it's only with like them using a material more often that they can really bring something to the students. One of the things that you have to know is that in the Czech Republic, media literacy has been very much politicized. Critical thinking is a curse word. We cannot use this word combination if we want to be able to talk further or to have people listen to us further. Another thing is our prime minister, who is a billionaire, who owns one of the biggest media houses in the Czech Republic, earlier this year said that chainmail is a very good way to bring some news that are not talked about in mainstream media. So yeah. So one of the other things why we want to reach these vocational schools is that from the polls that I talked about earlier, we did a poll also about how students see media literacy and how are they media literate. And in vocational schools, the level of their media literacy is much lower than in other schools. So that's obviously one of the reasons that why we want to go there. And so like just shortly how we're trying to do this. We try to go directly to the schools and show them how to teach it directly and show them that it works. Usually the teachers in these schools are burnt out. They don't think it has any point. They don't think that the students in their schools can learn anything. So when we go there and show them it's actually working, then they do use it. We try to share the feedback from other teachers that use it. And then obviously we try to reach the school directors, to reach the government officials, to make them like support the teachers to spread media literacy.
Great, thank you. ILJUN, I would like to ask you about the school system as well, bringing on from this point in Korea. You told me earlier that you thought it's not digital enough. Can you talk a bit more about that and how you then reach into schools?
Korea is a highly competing society, and the level of conflict is the highest in OECD countries, actually second highest. And so the misinformation and disinformation are getting increased, especially in political area, and now extending to other area. So media literacy education is getting more important in Korea. And our government taking the lead and trying to make media literacy in regular course of public school. But most parents have no interest, and even they refuse it. They refuse everything if not useful for their children to go to university. It's kind of crazy. In Korea, all the education in Korea exists for entering university. Media literacy, digital literacy, whatever it is, they just refuse it. It's even worse in big cities, and especially Seoul. I guess everyone here knows the song Gangnam Style. The Gangnam, the words means the south side of river, and it's the place the richest people and the most powerful people living that area. They don't like video literacy for their children, and some of them do not want people to be smart. It's because if people get smart, someday they might be against their money and their power. They worried about that. and they can affect on politics and policy. And this is the situation in Korea we are facing. So it's hard to reach into school with media literacy. And even it's the government, it's very hard. It's Korean situation.
I find it really interesting that you actually have the government trying to implement, but the blocker for you is the parents. But you then train the parents to go into schools, so you train them as trainers. I think that's a really unique and interesting model. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, that's the most proud part of our organization. We engaged parents as a video literacy trainer. At first, we give 1 hour special lecture in schools. And it's about first industrial revolution and future talent thing. And parents really want to know about this. They really like to hear. And it's very easy to gather the parents in school. We select and train the volunteering parents in each region. And after training, we give them a certificate and we send them to teach their children and some teachers. It's a volunteering job, but even we pay them 50%. We pay them, and they really consider this is a very honorable job. And now, almost 200 parents coach in nationwide, and now they became missionaries, and our movement extending with them. That's the most proud part in our organization.
Great, thank you. Destin, I would like you to tell us a bit more about the video you've made for MediaWise, but also can you elaborate on what kind of audiences do you think you reach with your platform on YouTube that MediaWise might not have reached otherwise?
Okay, so being a YouTuber, when I was young, it was all about being a baseball player. Everybody wanted to be, there's probably cricket here. So you want to be a baseball player growing up, but now the kids want to be a YouTuber. It makes me really sad, actually. But when they see a YouTuber saying something, they get really interested in it. But there's this other trick that might not translate culturally. In the U.S., I'm from a state called Alabama, which is, if you're from the U.S., you probably know, the stereotype is we're idiots and we're dumb and all this kind of stuff. But the trick is, you got this guy doing a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, and he seems to know what he's doing. He seems like a smart guy, And so the magic trick there is I made a video with the Pointer Institute, and I was learning along the way. I think people kind of get offended if you say, hey, you're doing it wrong, you don't know what you're doing online, you're kind of stupid. People don't like that. But if you have this kind of like bumbling guy learning along with them, I think that's kind of a trick. So if I ask the questions and I'm the idiot in the video, then for some reason that kind of works. And so we made a video where I interviewed Katie, and the director of MediaWise, which was funded by Google.org. And I just learned all these techniques that you heard Stanford talk about earlier, like lateral reading, all these different things, click restraint. And so we talked about those things, and it seemed to be very effective. The outcome of that was a much more skeptical audience. And so even on my YouTube channel, I see people talking frequently about, oh, I almost got tricked by this, but I wasn't. So there's that. We went further down the rabbit hole after this video that we made, and I went to Google, YouTube, and Facebook, and I interviewed the trust and safety teams at each of these companies face to face. They let me go in with cameras, which was crazy. And I interviewed the people that were actively trying to protect against disinformation. And I did a 3-part video series after the joint collaboration with Pointer. It was really interesting. The trick was trying to add real value to the viewers' lives, and I think it was a very positive response, we'll say that.
Mm. And do you know, in audience-wise, do you reach young people that wouldn't have always, or do you think there is a special segment that you reach through your channel?
So what I do with my channel is I start the video really simply with some kind of personal thing that's going on. And then I'll slowly, over the course of the video, I'll ramp up the technical complexity, but I'll ramp down the personality. And so I get more and more technically challenging as the video goes on. And at some point, I spike really, really hard so that someone that's getting a PhD in the topic would learn something. And then when people get bored of that, kind of like right now, everybody's a little bit bored, I just ramp back down real quick and do something personal. And that's the trick I have found to get people in grade school and, you know, well-educated doctors to do things. So it's like this really, it's like a formula. I do this little graph in my video, and then I ramp it down, and you do something personal on each side, because that's how we humans interact. We, you know, hello, my name is Destin. You shake hands before and after, and I try to do that mentally with a video, because if we just sit there and we talk about slides, it gets kind of boring kind of quick. And so that's kind of my trick, and I have found that I can get a very broad audience using that trick.
Okay, great, thank you. Santi, I know that at Mafindo you also use YouTubers actually. Why is that? Why is you seeing that also working and reaching audiences?
The YouTuber.
Yeah.
Yeah, because social media is became the new word, the new mantra for everybody. So when we're talking about the power and influence, they are also having such certain influence among others, not just for the young people, but also for several adults as well. So we also incorporated, one of our program is trying to make a hoax recap in parody style to deliver the key message about the importance of doing fact-checking, and this is how the damage of the hoax among the society. So if we're talking about the YouTuber, but we are not also talking about YouTuber. If we're speaking about the strategy to include everybody in the disinformation problems and so on, I do agree with what Masato again has talking about. Masato has talking about how important to include the Asian nation in this conversation, in this global conversation. And in my country, it is important to include everybody which is left in the corner, which is housewife as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we targeted housewife as well.
Yeah. And I'm actually, because you both work with young people and adults,
Yep.
and we've heard also from Irene that there's a problem in the sense that adults often tend to think that the problem is not about them.
Yes, third-person effect.
So how do you then tailor your resources towards adults when you also work with young people? How do you manage that? What works?
Yeah. The frame that we use is making a whole problem by by framing the family. So everything grounded from the family. So by that way, we're combining the power of the youth to do and to dig deeper, and also to encouraging mother and father to warn others not to spread misinformation and disinformation. So actually, we're talking about the joint cooperation between each member of the family to fight against this disinformation among the society. It is very important because if mother just go along, you know, their level of digital literacy is very low, as has been proved by recent research published by Japelidi, or a digital researcher network in Indonesia. But on the other hand, we do also understand that on the top of the problem, it is not because only because their level of digital literacy is low, but because also they have strong intention to protect others. So with that strong intention to protect others, they share the information instantly. They said it will. They try to warn others with the effect to avoid further casualties. But of course, without fact checking, we know that the problem is lies there.
Yeah.
So what we try to do in the personal level is trying to encourage their intention, their motive for protecting their family, not by sharing instantly, but doing fact checking first.
Great.
And
I think because I had a lot of questions still for the panel, but I would also very much like to involve the audiences. So I think we have time for 2 questions. So if there is any, otherwise I have loads. So yeah, that's one there.
Ann Collier from the Net Safety Collaborative in the U.S. Santi, I'm also seeing the power of story. You're utilizing the power of drama and story. And do you find that families co-view the dramas that you put on? You put it on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the catfish after seeing the video.
I know, right?
This is just one episode. We have 5 episodes.
Do catfish cause cancer?
It's a disinformation. You should check it. So thank you very much. About the family co-view. Yes, actually, with this, we are not just displaying this on the YouTube. We are also compose a lesson plan, an educational material that we also share in the YouTube also. We provide the link. It's still on progress, but with that educational material, we emphasize this family co-viewing together. But of course, we also included the youth in this effort. For example, we will create an infographic competition, which is trying to encourage the youth to create positive content in order to fight disinformation. Too much disinformation will kill us together.
Yeah, that's true. One more question? There was one there, yeah.
Hi. At the beginning, when Ramya said that there was a person from Mongolia, I am that person. So I think this is a great topic. I have 2 side questions, I guess. So in my country, we were a communist country until 91, and 88% of the teachers in Mongolia are 35 years or older. So they grew up in that space. So I personally don't believe that they can teach media literacy and critical thinking when they are like that. So do you think we could do something about that? If there's anyone with experience in post-Soviet countries, please let me know. And another solution is, because it's so hard to reach different parts of a country, like the countrysides, do you think the go-to solution is putting it online, make it a video? Do you think that's the solution? If so, how can we best do that?
Are you directing your question to anyone specific?
Yeah, no one specific.
Maybe Marianka would be best placed to answer the first one, at least, about the post-Soviet.
Because I come from a post-Soviet country or something. Although I'm half French, so only half of me is that. Well, yes, our teachers we have the same problem. Another problem that we have is that teachers are one of the less well-paid profession in the Czech Republic. No one wants to do it. No student wants to do it. There's an enormous lack of teachers. But they have to be the one teaching media literacy because they are the teachers. So our job is just really to train them. I mean, that's what we can do, because that's the easiest way to approach students is through the teachers. And of course, it would be the best way would be to have an organization like the CLIMI that was talked about earlier, which is this French government organization, because when it comes from the government, obviously teachers will be more they will do it. When it comes from an NGO, there will always be some of them who will not trust us. But even if they're 60, we just have to train them to be able to teach it. That's my answer. I don't know if someone has a different one.
Great, thank you. In terms of just putting it online as a video, I know that ILJUN, you do really, really advanced sessions from a technical perspective. Do you think the future is just to put everything online on a video to reach the hard-to-reach communities? So can you? I know that you do really advanced technical things like AI. Do you think that the future is just only having digital?
I I have to be careful answering this question. I believe humanitarian is more important than digital. Digital is just a method and tools, but it's very important how we use it. It's like, I think, knife. Someone using the knife for cooking, and someone using that knife for killing person. Digital is just like knife. It depends on how you using it. Knife is no guilty. Every guilty is for person. So we have to teach our children to how to use in a healthy way. Yeah, I believe.
Great, thank you. Destin, do you have any comments to just, as your main platform is online, do you have any comments on, do you think we should do more videos online?
I think the key in making videos online is to connect with the person. I think that's the key. And so every video that I make, I try to find a human that's an expert and talk to them, and I try to ask the dumb questions. And I think if you're doing that and actually connecting with hearts, then I think it's more effective. And that's what we tried to do with MediaWise.
Great, thank you. We have to wrap up now, so thank you very much to our panel, and thank you to the audience for being here, but also asking questions. We've learned for this panel today that mothers love drama. It's very different global issues when it comes to governments. You have some that are supportive, you have some that you almost fight. You have other places where the parents are a blocker. So it's important to look at the local issues of where the block for the media literacy lies. We also learned that the president of the Czech Republic really likes chainmail. And it's important to make the teachers believe in their student and believe in abilities as well. That is what we really come. And you can make parents teachers as well. That is a way of engaging. We also learned that in Alabama, people are seen as kind of dumb.
It's a fact.
But also that it's really, really important to learn along with people instead of teaching them.
Right.
And I like that comment. So thank you to Google for hosting, and thank you to the audience again. And I really hope that we can continue some of these discussions in the networking session later. Thank you.